I'm John Palmer. Today, a sudden disaster that turns ordinary people into remarkable heroes. When the inner balconies of a luxury hotel collapse without warning, firefighter Roy Campbell struggles against time and despair to save a child trapped beneath the debris. Then an unforgettable story of war. 1944, aboard the legendary USS Intrepid, gunner Russell Bourne and his comrades bravely face the swarms of Japanese kamikaze pilots who attack without fear of death. Join us. You're about to experience instant recall. Beneath the tons of twisted rubble, people are alive. It has been a night of horror. Now it's a time for heroes.
We knew it was a child that was trapped underneath, but he was alive, and that was something that spurred us on, made our morale begin to build back up.
All they can do is man their guns and watch. Sailors aboard the USS Intrepid fight off the divine wind of the kamikazes, Japan's dreaded suicide planes.
It was scary. We knew that nothing would stop them. Guns wouldn't stop them or anything. And they, even if they were hit, they still kept on.
Also ahead, a tortured soul trapped in a monstrous body. The timeless tale of Frankenstein. It's a testament to us all, how a community pulls together when disaster strikes. It happened when the earthquake rocked San Francisco. It happened when Hurricane Hugo hit South Carolina. And it happened on the evening of July 17th, 1981 in Kansas City. That evening, more than 1,000 people attended a dance at the atrium of the new Hyatt Regency Hotel. Suddenly, there was a noise like a clap of thunder. The hotel's concrete walkways, called sky bridges, had collapsed. And in that moment, a handful of ordinary people became heroes.
July 17th, 1981 completely changed my outlook on life.
It was the most terrifying thing that I've ever gone through.
July 17th, 1981. The Friday evening tea dance at the Kansas City Hyatt Hotel turns into tragedy when two crowded concrete walkways suddenly collapse. In an instant, hundreds of people are buried under tons of concrete and steel. 111 die, scores are injured. It is a day of horror, but it is also a day for heroes.
I was a professional firefighter and had been for some time, but I had never dealt with such a situation where so many people were involved.
Fireman Roy Campbell was one of the many rescuers on the scene who had the awesome task of trying to free those trapped underneath the twisted rubble.
I remember seeing firemen actually reaching with their hands and trying to pull concrete off of people, clawing at it with their hands.
When rescue equipment at the scene is unable to lift the massive slabs of concrete, heavy construction cranes are brought in. Dr. Joe Wackerly led the search for survivors. Time after time, he put his own life on the line, trying to find the living among the dead.
You had to crawl under the top one to see if there was someone sandwiched between that top skywalk, which had been on the 4th floor, which fell on the 2nd floor skywalk, which then fell on the lobby floor.
Dr. Joe was a very brave man. He worked underneath the concrete, on top of the concrete, people that were partially trapped under it.
In the first minutes, the extraordinary efforts of Dr. Joe and the other rescue workers saved many lives. But after 4 hours, the men began to lose hope that they will find anyone else alive.
It seemed like we couldn't hear anymore. We were not finding anyone, and that seemed to lower the morale of everybody that was working in the place.
It was a long time before anybody heard us.
Pinned to the lobby floor under 50 tons of rubble are Connie Downing and her 11-year-old son, Dalton.
It's just that the feeling of complete helplessness, you know? You've got no chance of moving, barely a chance of breathing because there's concrete laying on your back. You're pinned down in water that you can feel raising up to your face. And it's just the feeling of complete loss, and it's like they're never going to get down to you. They're never going to get down to you.
We held hands. We prayed together. And at one time when he said, "Are we going to die?" my response was, "I don't know." And I really didn't at that point in time.
Connie and Dalton are trapped for 5 hours. Finally, fire rescuers hear Dalton's muffled cries of help.
I was screaming, and I guess a firefighter heard me screaming under there because I had a really high voice.
When we heard Dalton's voice, we knew it was a child that was trapped underneath, but he was alive, and that was something that spurred us on, made our morale begin to build back up.
Rescuers go looking for Dr. Joe.
A number of rescuers at the site that came up to me and said, "Dr. Joe, we've got some people alive under here, and you need to get to these people." I understand I need to get to these people, but the fact is that they're buried under 60 or 80 tons of concrete.
If Dalton and his mother are to be saved, an elaborate excavation is required. First, the top skywalk is removed by a crane. Jackhammers are brought in to try and break through the 2-foot-thick concrete that entombs them.
They're explaining to us what they're doing, that they're going to use a jackhammer as close to us as they can possibly get.
A small hole is punched through the concrete so their exact position and physical condition can be determined. Miraculously, Dalton and his mother have not suffered life-threatening injuries. Dr. Joe is able to talk to Dalton through the small hole in the cement.
I said, "Dalton, I'm Dr. Joe, and I'm a physician, and I'm going to be taking care of you, and we're going to get you out of here."
He kept pleading with us just to help him get out.
For more than 3 hours, the jackhammer operators carefully chip away at the concrete. At one point, a jackhammer comes dangerously close to Dalton's head.
I could feel the plaster or whatever breaking through right over my head. So I just screamed as loud as I could, and until he could finally hear me, and they stopped the jackhammers and scooted him over.
After more than 8½ hours buried alive, the jackhammers break through. Dalton and his mother are pulled free from their concrete tomb.
It was sort of like being born, because you come out into this light after being in this dark, damp place.
I could have died. So it was terrifying, yet it gives you all the more reason to live after you live through it.
The tragedy at the Hyatt should never have happened. An investigation later proved that gross negligence in the design of those skywalks was to blame. The Hyatt has since been repaired, renamed, and reopened. And the man who led the medical rescue effort, Dr. Joe Wackerly, has become one of the world's most recognized authorities on the treatment of trauma and disaster victims. Next, another moment, another time on Instant Recall.